obviously the number one purpose of fall camp practice is, to create good habits. Obviously, bad habits have a cost. Good habits have a price, but you got to pay the price for these good habits up front, which is obviously what you do when fall camp comes along. Um, this is a time when you have to sort of embrace the grind. We've got some players who've been blessed with talent, um, but it only comes to fruition if you can embrace the grind, and you can't view the circumstances as an obstacle, but an opportunity to focus in difficult circumstances and difficult situations so that this will be an advantage to you to be able to sustain, in the future. I think the acclimation process that we go through right now for players is probably a real positive, for the players. A couple days in helmets, a couple days in shells, and then you put pads on. So it's good transition for players. I think it's been good practice for us so far. I see progress in every practice. There's obviously a lot of areas that we need to improve on. There's individual players who have new opportunities to contribute to the team in various ways, and we want them to develop the kind of habits that are going to allow them to play winning football on a consistent basis so they can get the results, that they'd like to get. So pleased with the staff, new leadership, whether it's Kevin Steele or Tommy on offense. Those guys have both done a good job. I think players have responded very well to them, and so far there's a lot of teaching, there's a lot of installation. This is the most condensed period probably of how much do we throw at players to learn in a short period of time as any time during the season, but this also gives them the foundation that they need to make the adaptations and adjustments that they need to make throughout the season. So, and so far the attitude has been good and the players have been good, and we just want to be able to sustain that, which I think is the biggest challenge in fall camp.
Can you tell us a little bit about the speakers you've got lined up for the players this camp?
Well, we try to get the best speakers that we possibly can that will address issues that we're facing in college football, as well as people who sort of can help create a mindset that's going to help you be more consistent so that you can get the results that you want relative to the commitments that you make. So, and I think we have a really good blend of all those, types of people. Um, Obviously, you guys know what the issues are. If you look at players that are suspended for whether it's gambling, drugs and alcohol, whatever. So those are all things that we're trying to educate players on relative to consequences of good and bad behavior, cause and effect, because we don't want anybody to suffer negative consequences that might impact and affect their brand, and that all goes to the choices and decisions that they make. And if we can impact those through education with good speakers, that's the goal of what we try to do throughout the year. But as it's the same thing, it's more condensed in fall camp.
What have you seen from Chris Braswell so far this camp?
Chris Braswell, guys, really speak up. Maybe turn the mic up a little bit.
Chris Braswell has made an impact when he's had the opportunity to play. Now he's got the opportunity to be a full-time starter. He's a mature player. He's gotten bigger and stronger. He's a good pass rusher. So, we expect him to do well this season and have a great year, and we want to do everything we can to help him do that.
When you're looking at the left side of your offensive line, what have you seen from the guys that are competing at left tackle and left guard?
Well, I think you mentioned it. How are they competing? What's their maturity level relative to they have ability? How can they sustain the grind of not making mental errors, players staying focused on the things that they need to do to improve, whether it's fundamental technique or knowledge of assignment. And that's what we want to continue to focus on. I think both those guys have ability.
What does it say about the competitiveness of the guys in the quarterback room that you already had, that when you brought a transfer in the spring, that they all decided to stay and compete for the job?
Well, I think they all have an opportunity to compete for the job. But, you know, this job that you all talk about at quarterback, you know, I've told our quarterbacks, you know, this is not, fall camp is not the beginning of the end. You know, you got an opportunity to separate yourself, to show that you can play with consistency and play winning football at the position. But that competition goes on and on and on, and we need all of the quarterbacks to continue to improve and to continue to compete even far beyond the time that we name a starter. I mean, we've had circumstances around here where quarterbacks have changed during the course of the year. You know what they are. You understand the history of what's happened at this place, and so that's going to be the way this situation is. Somebody needs to separate themselves, and then I want all the players to continue to compete so that they can improve. So if they do get an opportunity to play, they're going to be ready to play and play well.
So how have you seen Devontae Smith develop the last couple of years at safety?
This mic is.
He's asking about Devontae Smith and safety development. Can we turn it up a little bit back there?
You know, Devontae is really a good athlete. He's a hard worker. He's gotten bigger and stronger. He's got really good speed. He's been a very good special teams player for us in the past. I think his knowledge and experience is starting to sort of come to fruition in the secondary. You know, he's very conscientious and not making the mental errors that have been a little bit of a Achilles heel in the past. So we're very pleased with the progress that he's making.
Stay over here with me, Kelly.
How would you assess the receivers so far early in fall camp?
I don't know. You have a specific guy that you'd like to ask about? I mean, we've got like 15 receivers. Some good, some okay, some need to improve, some have experience, some need to gain experience. I think they're all working hard, but I do think attention to detail is probably one of the biggest things in route running, timing, and the passing game that they all need to sort of focus on. So, you know, you ask me a general question. As a whole group, nobody's disappointed, and I think we have some guys that have talent there, and if we can get them to play to that level, I think we'll have a chance to have some guys that can make plays at that position.
Coach, how good was it for you to see the fans back inside the stadium for a fan day and open practice for the first time in a while?
Yeah, well, I think that fan day has always been something that is a good thing for fans. For them to be able to see a practice as well as spend some time around players and coaches to get autographs and things like that, which I think are important. And, you know, to condense that time for them is also good for us so that we can stay focused on really what we are trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do. But it was great. I enjoy it. I get to meet a lot of people, and makes you realize to some degree how important Alabama football and Alabama athletics are to a lot of our fans.
You mentioned in the fall, it's when a lot of information gets thrown at players. Is there a time where maybe some of those early kind of lapses and mental mistakes kind of get forgiven compared to maybe later in the season where those would be less tolerated when players aren't learning as much?
Well, mistake is a mistake. All right, and, you know, what did I say? You know, bad habits have a price. They cost you. And now's now's the time to develop good habits. I don't think we're never going to play perfect. Every player is going to make mistakes. How much we can minimize those mistakes and the degree of those mistakes relative to how it impacts and affects the outcome of the game. I think we're trying to get guys to stay focused on the process of how they have to focus on that particular play in that particular moment, so they have the best chance to be able not to make, a mistake that's very disruptive to whether it's offense, defense, giving up a big play, making a big play. And everybody has a responsibility and obligation and accountability to everybody, because as soon as one of us makes a mistake, including me, it impacts everybody on the team. So I don't know that that's ever something that you use the word forgive. You try to learn from those mistakes so that you can improve in the future. So they're all opportunities, teaching experience, teaching moments, whatever you want to call them, because you never want to give up a failing. So you never want to tolerate mistakes, but you also want to learn from the ones that you make.
We'll go to Tony next, but raise your hand if I haven't got to you.
You mentioned there, sorry, you mentioned there being 4 really good running backs in the unit. Is there a challenge of getting them all opportunities during this time? Spreading the ball around?
Well, I think everybody has to sort of show how they could be used in a positive way. I think that, that's a position where those guys have been really good special teams players, and I think they can contribute in special teams, as well as we've had as many as 3 guys have really strong sort of input into how they've been able to impact the team at one time. And I think that's a position we can do it. Hopefully we'll be able to stay healthy at that position, but there's a competition, and the best guys are going to get the most opportunities, and I think those guys can all contribute in a positive way to our team.
Yeah, Coach, not sure if you got a chance to see it, but Eli Drinkwitz kind of talked a lot yesterday about conference realignment and teams going from the East Coast to West Coast and how it might affect not just football, but, the other sports at schools and student athletes. I was wondering your opinion on that.
Look, I did not hear what anybody's comments have been about this. Look, there's a lot of traditions that we've had for a long time in college football, and I think we're in a time of evolution for whatever reasons, and some of those traditions are going to get sort of pushed by the wayside, I think, and it's sad. Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent for college football, I guess you have to define what is good, bad, what is good and bad for college football. So I think one thing I would just hope that we would keep in mind in all the choices and decisions we make relative to what we do in college athletics is the student athlete. They're here to get an education. We want to try to help them develop careers on and off the field. And hopefully some of the choices and decisions that we make for college athletics in the future will impact them in a positive way. And I hope that we can keep that as a priority in terms of whatever we decide to do in the future of college football and college athletics. All right, thank you.
Good morning. Good to see everybody. Obviously, excited to be back at Alabama. It's a very, very special place for a lot of reasons, but the commitment to excellence that touches us on a daily basis, no matter what it is just it's unparalleled. And so it's exciting to be back. As far as defense, we all know this. We have arguably, to some people, but not to me, the best defensive mind that I've ever been around in the building. So the scheme of how we do things and go about things is not, that's Coach Saban, and we obviously help every way we can in that. But that's we are who we are. And then as far as the players, I think probably the most exciting thing about this group is they are coachable. They are coachable, and it's a work in progress. We're focusing very hard on relentless effort, physical, mental toughness, do your job mentality, and that they're very coachable to that, which is positive. The thing that probably goes unnoticed sometimes, doesn't get talked about a lot. I've been doing this a while, so I know when it is right. Is that we have a very, very strong group of guys in the room with Coach Robinson, Coach Bala, Coach Hutzler, Coach Roach. Those guys are outstanding football coaches. They're very smart, and that's a huge, huge benefit. And then we have unity in there. We get along. The room is very positive in that aspect. So it's very positive. So you put those two things together, you go to work and apply the process that Coach has in place, and then good things can happen.
Hey, Coach. A lot of the players this offseason have talked about you and bringing back that Alabama standard. Just to you, what does that mean?
Excuse me now, bringing back what?
The Alabama standard to the defense.
Well, that's kind of a loaded question in some regards, in that this process is built, and it started in '07. I was here, so it hasn't gone anywhere. It really hasn't. Obviously, offensive football has changed. It's harder on defense right now at this present time than maybe it's been in a long, long time. But the process is the process, and that's the things I talked about earlier in terms of physical and mental toughness, relentless effort, dominate your opponent, and do your job. It's simple principles. Obviously, schematically, we have a defense that can put pressure on the offense. I mean, it's built that way. We have a lot of moving parts in that regard, and it's just knowing your job and doing your job.
Yes, Coach. You've been here before, and so obviously you were very familiar with of this. I'm curious about if, when Coach Saban brought you back, if he had something like he had with Lane Kiffin, where he said, "We've got to do something to change whatever's going on." And I wonder if he had any directive like that, a specific directive to you when you came back.
Well, obviously, part of that question is a question for the head coach, why he did what he did. But Coach always has directives for whatever's going on in this building, any point in time. So yes, this is what I want. This is how I want it. Was it different than what it was before I got here? I don't know. I wasn't here. It wasn't any different than it was the other two times I was here.
Hey, Coach, you talked about the defensive line in your opening. Just what's so special about that group and that group of guys?
Well, right now we're early in fall practice, but they've worked really hard in the summer as a defensive line group. We've got talent there. They're very coachable, and we've got some guys that are developing leadership in the room. That's a work in progress, but we have the talent. We've just got to work the process.
Hey, Kevin, you've been around some talented linebackers in the past. What do you see in Deontay Lawson and what he can be for this defense?
Well, Deontay is a guy that's very smart. He works very hard, but he also has time on task. He's been there, and so that always helps in college football. There is a difference in an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old in terms, and particularly if you've done the task over and over and over. So he has a lot of snaps under his belt. He knows the expectation. He knows the process, and he's very smart. He's relentless in his approach to working toward improving himself and the defense.
There's a lot of moving pieces in the secondary. Saban mentioned he wants versatility with some of the players. How do you see that group developing so far in the secondary?
Well, again, we're early in the process. In the summertime, we do get some work with them, and we had spring practice. Again, the same thing. I mean, we're at Alabama. We have talent. There are talented guys out there. We've got guys that have played a lot. We've got some guys that have not played so much yet. But it's starting to fit together in terms of who's where and what, and then what their strengths are and how to utilize those.
You touched on this a minute ago, but can you just speak a little bit more specifically about how much defense in college football has had to adjust the last 10, 12 years with fast break, spread, rule changes, all that?
Right. It is a challenge defensively right now in terms of the tempo. Several years back kind of started the thing, and then the multiplicity of formations has gone off the roof in terms of that. We even have people that if they spread out any further, they'd be on the sideline, they'd be on the bench. They're using the whole thing, and so those kind of things that have happened. But then also the RPOs, and then the look, that the eye candy that goes with that, play action type stuff, where you've got pullers and running backs going opposite, which that's going down the exit ramp.
You've spoken a lot about the do your job mentality. In the past, there's been moments where maybe some younger players have struggled to grasp the scheme. Has there been an emphasis this offseason of maybe emphasizing or just simplifying things in order to let players play with confidence on the field?
Well, do your job, and defense is a reaction. We don't call the offense knows what they're doing. They call the play. Everybody knows they run it. We have to adjust to everything. And so I cannot speak of the past, so I know this. There's always an emphasis in the process that Coach Saban has of do your job, know your job, do your job. And this group has been phenomenal at embracing that.
Go to the other side of the cage.
Morning, Coach. You touched on this early on about the scheme being the scheme foundationally. For you, what has the process been like of maybe incorporating things that worked at past places and merging it with the foundation of the defensive scheme?
Incorporating things that work for me into this system is really kind of, if you really knew what I'm saying here, it's the system I was running was this system. So it's not now. Incorporating maybe a little nuances, that happens with all of us. I mean, we spent all off season studying different teams, studying different defenses. The whole staff will bring ideas to the room. We're always evolving in that regard. As far as for me coming back in here, the verbiage, 80% of what is done here defensively, that's what I was doing at other places. Even the words were the same, so there was not I didn't have to bring a new dictionary in. There are some nuances that have changed since I left. They primarily still stay conceptually within the base of what we were doing, just the application of the concept. So in that regard, we're always evolving.
There's been a theme among players this offseason about kind of cleaning up penalties and being more disciplined. How do you go about doing that in practice and trying to preach that?
Well, it's no different. Penalties, those type things, it's no different. When you have something to correct, then you place an emphasis on it. And obviously we have officials at practice. We chart every official. There are repercussions for your actions, and just it stays in front of you. And in most cases in life, as you know, if you keep something that you need to correct in front of you continuously, most people learn and it gets corrected.
Coach, you've been to a lot of places, you mentioned that, but to return with Coach Saban, what was that emotion like for you to get that call to come back?
Well, shocking. I did not see it coming. It was not something I expected. But obviously, when you get an opportunity to coach at the University of Alabama for the best coach that's ever done it, it's sometimes you look in the mirror and say, "Why me?" You know. But very blessed to be here. It's you couldn't ask for anything better. If you're going to coach college football, to coach at the University of Alabama for Coach Saban, that's what you want to do.
Hey, Coach. There's been a lot of off-season hype about Caleb Downs. As far as true freshmen coming into defenses, you've seen a lot of them. How impressive is he, and how much of an impact do you think he might show early on?
Well, obviously, you know that some of the questions that get asked, head coach needs to answer. But as a collective group, it's Alabama. We have talented freshmen, and they are working very hard. Trying to find where to place those guys is still a work in process, but we've got some very talented young freshmen, very smart, football smart young freshmen that can have the ability to be playmakers.
Coach Steele, specifically on the defensive line, a kid that's been around here for a while, local kid from Pickens County, Jamarian Latham.
Right.
What does he bring? I know he's very athletic, maybe a little undersized, but what does he bring, and what's his potential to impact that defensive front this year?
Well, Lath he's an extremely hard worker, extremely hard worker. It just doesn't get too tough for him. He's mentally tough. He's physically very competitive. Just relentless in his work ethic.
Kevin, what have you seen from Chris Braswell since you got here?
Very, very talented, very talented. Smart football player. Has a ability to rush the passer, you know, to get on the quarterback, and he's really, you know, when you look at him and watch him, you may not think about it, but he has a physicality about him.
You mentioned unity among the defensive coaches, but you've been around this program before, but on the other side of the ball, Tommy Reese, the new coordinator coming in, what's it kind of like? I don't know how much you work with him since y'all are on other sides, but maybe working alongside a younger coach and kind of what it's been like having him be around the players.
Well, it's kind of Tommy was unique for me because I knew his dad before Tommy was born, and he is a extremely bright football coach. But he has I kid him about this, Notre Dame quarterback from Chicago. He's very tough. He's got a defensive mentality. I don't know if he'd appreciate me saying that about it, but he's a very tough football coach, and very smart. But he's the same every day. That's the best part about Tommy. He's the same every day. He's got ice water in his veins.
Okay, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
First of all, thanks everybody for being here. Excited for my first opportunity to get to know you all and have an opportunity to speak in front of you all. Obviously, very fortunate to be here. Alabama's a place that has proven to be pretty special to coach at. We have great young men. We have great players here that are hungry to get better and hungry to do things the right way. I'm surrounded every day by, I think the best offensive staff, defensive staff, and support staff in the country. And, the people here have really, opened their arms and treated us well. And, I think we have a ton of buy-in right now amongst our staff and players, which makes coming to work really enjoyable every day. And, I think we're all energized and hungry to continue to practice and continue to get better and continue to see how good we can be. This is something that we take very seriously, something that we take a lot of pride in, and we're excited to continue this thing to go in the right direction and, see, how our players continue to respond and get better. But, we're in the only 3 days into training camp here, so a lot of questions, a lot of things to continue to unfold, but we really are enjoying the direction that the players are going in and, believe that we have, a good blend of veteran presence and young talent. And it's our job as coaches and as staff to continue to put them in position to have success and, try to get the very most out of them. So, again, thanks so much for you guys being here. I'm, excited to get to know everybody, and I guess we'll open up to questions, Josh, whenever. Right up here in the front with you.
Hey, Tommy. Mike Golick Jr., I think, tells a story about a decade ago. You guys were sitting in the locker room, and someone posed the question, if you come back as another position, what would it be? And he said that you said pulling guard. Why did you give that answer?
And I wasn't a very good quarterback, so I figured I could take another shot somewhere. I just, like, that physical part of the game has always resonated with me. I think, the offensive line's a group that can be unsung a little bit, and, really without that group of 5 in front of you, it's hard to do anything well, not just run the football, not just throw the football, but really, like, you're facing an uphill battle. And, I just always liked the camaraderie of the group of the guys up front. And there's a toughness to this game that I always felt like I missed by playing quarterback, and something that I kind of longed for. But I've brought that up a few times.
Coach, you competed against Coach Saban while you were a quarterback at Notre Dame, but to get that call to come be a coach on this staff, what was that emotion like for you that you were the one that got the call?
Yeah, I competed against him as a player, sort of, and then again as a coach in 20. So obviously, I've faced 2 great teams in this program's history, and really preparing for those games, you could see and feel just the intensity at which Alabama prepared in. The call is something that, to be honest with you, a little, surreal, but at the end of the day, this is my profession. This is something that, I want to be doing for a long time, and, I wanted to make sure that if the opportunity to interview did present itself after the call, that it was something I was prepared for. Obviously just knowing Coach from a distance there and what, he, looks for in his coaches and what he expects of the guys in this building, I wanted to make sure that I was fully prepared to, have an opportunity that, was presented to me. And, you kind of try to flush the emotion as quickly as you can and just, take it as, another interview, because that's really what it was, and try not to let any of that other stuff, cloud your judgment or mine.
Coach, in the past, rather offensive coordinators that have been here, like Brian Daboll, Mike Loxley, obviously Bill O'Brien, they say Coach Saban wants you to learn the offense as opposed to bringing in your own system. Is it almost like going back in time and learning a whole new offense, and how steep has that learning curve been for you?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's the right way to do it. There's been a system in place here for however many years, and you have players here that are familiar with terminology, with what you're trying to accomplish. And so to say one guy's going to come in here and change everything would be the wrong way to approach it. I full-heartedly agree with that. The learning curve is what it is. I don't find it to be too steep at all. I think when you have a general base knowledge of the game, there's only so many run plays you can run, only so many pass concepts you can have. It's just training your brain to switch how you call it. So really wasn't a steep learning curve at all. This offense obviously has been prolific over the last decade, and to come in here and say we're going to change all these things would be foolish. There's certain things that we want to do or alter or look at to enhance it, but a wholesale change would never make sense. And so there are still times where you got to remind yourself, hey, this is, we're calling it this. And again, we have a great staff, great support staff with our analysts and GAs that help us, with all those issues and all those little things. But our players have really bought into what we're asking them to do. And, for me to come in and learn the system was really a smoother transition than maybe, I anticipated.
Tommy, you're from Chicago, spent a lot of time in South Bend. Has there been anything that you found weird or unexpected in a non-football sense about moving to the state of Alabama?
No, I mean, we've really embraced, the differences and the culture. It's hotter, I mean, we learned that yesterday pretty quick. But no, I mean, the people have been really warm, for us. We've come in here and really felt, welcomed and all that. I mean, I think when we moved into our house, we had about 10 neighbors come off and drop baskets. That's something that probably hadn't happened for me before. The thing that really I resonate the most with is the love and the passion for the game of football. I mean, I was at a spring scrimmage on a Thursday night during, the month of May in recruiting, and you felt like it was a Friday night in the fall. And that's something, somebody that loves the game and grew up around it, like, that energized me. And you feel the passion and the support of the people and the fans, for this game and for this program. And at the high school level, it's really cool to be a part of. And so, we fully embraced it. We've, loved being here and really are enjoying it.
Tyler Buckner is a guy you obviously knew at Notre Dame. Just kind of what was the process of him coming here? How active were you in wanting him to come to Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, look, when he went into the portal and, we looked at an opportunity to add competition to the room. I think competition at all positions is going to bring out the best in individuals. It's going to add, an extra layer of development. It's going to allow people to rise, with the competition. And I think one thing we're trying to get the whole quarterback group to understand is when one guy has success, first of all, we need to look at it as shared success. We need to look at it as the group. Like, we want to leave practice saying the quarterback position, the quarterback group had a good day. The other thing we want to see is when one quarterback has success, it's going to challenge the rest of the group. And when we can do that, it's going to raise the level of play in the room. And so we don't want to look at it and shy away from it. We want to look at it as an opportunity to improve the group, improve the entire group. To answer your question probably more directly, Ty's a guy I recruited at a young age, obviously spent 2 seasons with him. I think, he provides a little bit of a veteran presence in the room and adds some competition. And, I think he's hit the ground running with the rest of the guys on the team, especially with the rest of the quarterbacks. And it's been really a healthy transition.
Kind of piggybacking off that, what does it say about both Jalen and Ty that they stuck around after you bring in a guy from the portal, and what kind of progress have you seen from those two?
Yeah, I think they've both improved greatly from the spring. I think there's been an extra buy-in, since spring ball ended, and just doing more and doing extra to get themselves prepared. I think it shows, first of all, a great amount of character, a great amount of competitiveness for those two guys, but it also shows a love for their teammates and a love for being here. And honestly, it speaks volumes about the program that guys want to stay here. And so I think it's really special that, in this age of college football, especially at the quarterback position when guys are so eager to leave, that 2 guys looked at an opportunity to stay here, to care about their teammates, to continue to improve. And, ultimately we're trying to build as healthy of a room as we can. And they understood that competition can bring out the best in them. And, they've been great, the entire process, throughout. And, I don't expect that to change.
You've been pretty open about your love for physical and running style of football. What do you see from the backfield you have, and do you think that could be something that you can really lean on this fall?
Yeah, I think, we have a great group there. We have a really healthy blend of some veteran guys. Obviously we have a couple of young players, in the room still. And, I think they all play a physical brand of football. I all think they're, they're extremely well prepared. Coach Gillespie does an unbelievable job with that room. Really never any issues. They know their assignment. They play hard. They play physical. And we have a great blend of guys that can do kind of a little bit different things coming out of the backfield in the pass game, running between the tackles. So we're a little bit spoiled at that position, if I'm being honest with you. We're very talented there. And, I'm excited to see how the pieces fall together and excited to see how we can enhance some of those guys' roles moving forward.
Coach, you opened up and talked about learning the Alabama offense, but the Notre Dame offense that you've been running over the last couple of years does look a little bit different than what Alabama has run. How much freedom do you feel to implement the wrinkles or implement the style that you want to that you've been used to running at Notre Dame?
Yeah, I think, philosophically, we always start with how can we win with people? How can we win with the people that we have, and how can we put them in position to be successful? So any wrinkle is really personnel driven. Like, these guys do these things well, or we're built to do this. That's what we want to focus on, and then, we continue to bring the other parts along. So I do think, there's the freedom there to say, hey, we can do these three things well, that we can implement into the offense and enhance it. I do think, we're probably going to look different than we did when I was elsewhere, because our personnel is different. There's different strengths. There's different, areas that we can take advantage of. So again, we don't have, a system, or I don't have a system that says, hey, you have to fit into these squares. It's more about how can I fit what you do and what you do really well into enhancing our offense. And again, our mantra is win with people, and, we're going to find ways to allow our players to be in positions to have great success.
Hey, Coach, repping three quarterbacks, I know there's five out there, but when you're looking at three guys for the competition, how hard is that when you're having to split it in thirds rather than in 50% or in the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, there are some challenges. We practice in a way that there are, plenty of opportunities and reps for all those guys to get. I think the thing I'm fortunate for is our quarterbacks understand it, and they, don't have any egos, and they're, we're trying to tell them, hey, when you're in there, you're the guy, and we want you to own those opportunities, own those reps. And so they've bought into that. They've been supportive of one another. Eli and Dylan are still getting plenty of reps. We're really repping five guys right now, which is, probably really rare. You go across the country, probably nowhere in the country is repping five guys. But the way we practice, the way we give our guys opportunities, it allows for that to happen. And our players have bought into it. And, we have had opportunities to give them, longer chunks of plays to get them into a rhythm. Sometimes it's a little choppier, but, we want to make sure that, we're mixing up how we're rotating. We're mixing up the different periods that guys get so that they're exposed to different situational football. And, again, our players have made it easy for me because they've been receptive to it, and they just want to make the most of every opportunity they've had.
Morning, Coach. What are your impressions of how the tight end room has continued to develop since spring practice, and what is the potential for that group?
Yeah, I think Coach Cox, he's done an unbelievable job of, getting that room to continually and steadily improve. I think we have more than enough talent in that room. I think we have a lot of different body types in that room, which allows us to kind of mix and match the personnel and use them in some different roles. But it's a room that's deep, it's a room that's talented, and it's a room that's steadily improving. I think, again, you bring in CJ, who's a veteran, played a lot of football. You have some guys that were on the roster a year ago that didn't play a ton, but you're, hoping that they continue to progress. And I think they've done that. I think, again, like I said, the room looks different top to bottom. Like, everybody has different strengths and things that they do really well. And so our job as a staff is to make sure that we can personnel things the right way to get the right people in the right spots.
You just kind of touched on it, but your approach to tight ends at Notre Dame compared to what you might have here personnel-wise, and then also what you might have at wide receiver, and kind of deciding what personnel to put on the field.
Yeah, I think obviously that's a week-to-week decision a little bit with how we're trying to attack a team and what the theme of that, game plan would be. Again, I think our tight ends are plenty talented enough here right now to feature them in some things, but again, we have a deep receiver room that's talented as well. So that blend of, how can we be, still a physical brand of football with the personnel we have on the field, but also understand that, we have some wideouts that can really break games open. And so, again, as a staff, the blend of personnel and the way we use it and the way we can keep a defense off balance by looking different play to play is something that, we want to have, at our disposal. And so, I think we have tight ends that can do a lot of different things for us. We have plenty of wideouts that can go make plays and put them in position to be successful. And, we were fortunate at Notre Dame to have good tight ends, but I don't really see it any different, with the group we have here.
How do you go about building a relationship with a quarterback?
Yeah, not different than probably any other relationship that matters, in your life. I think, it has to be built on, you got to relate with people. You got to be honest with them. You got to build trust from an early onset. You got to find something off the field that you can connect with so that they don't feel like it's always just transactional, right? There needs to be an actual caring relationship there. And so, I think early on, you show them that you care. You show them that you want to build trust. You show them that, you're going to put the expectations, at a high level and hold them to that all the time, and that's what they want. But then you got to have moments too away from the game where you can have a relationship based on other interests and other things that they're into. I do believe that the relationship between a play caller and the quarterback is as important as anything, and so they got to be an extension of what we're trying to do as a staff. And I think the only way you can get there is if there's full trust and it's a two-way street between the play caller and the quarterback. All right, guys, thanks so much.